Hello, beautiful people. So today we have a new moon in Taurus happening just in few hours time. And I already released a collaboration video with Michaela and Adrian, my two good friends and also fellow evolutionary astrologers, which you can find on my YouTube channel, Moonlight Soul, and also on Michaela's YouTube channel, Scenic Route Astrology, where we talk about the astrology of this new moon in Taurus into quite a deep extent. So if you are looking for astrology interpretation of this new moon, then I recommend to watch that video. This video is a personal application live share. So if you're not interested in that, then that's perfectly fine. But I actually felt really inspired this morning. Having my breakfast, I came across a podcast from a client of mine and a good friend, Leslie. She has a podcast on Spotify called Doing My Best, and it deeply inspired me. Her vulnerability and her willingness to share her story and her painful experiences of what she's been going through. And if you are interested to know what that is, then I recommend you to listen to her podcast. It's not at all long, and she actually is pulling cards, oracle cards for this new moon. So these are collective messages, and then she shares her personal story and how these energies has been playing up in her life. And I feel inspired to actually chip in and share my experience, because I feel that sometimes people think that just because I'm an astrologer, or these people who are an astrologers or healers or psychologists or coaches on whatever, they think that we don't go through the same experiences, and perhaps, oh, it's easy for them because they understand what's happening, or they have the tools and stuff. But actually that is not the case at all, and usually we have to go through quite challenging situations ourselves, so then we can understand what it feels like for other people to go through something similar, not necessarily the same thing, but something similar. And I felt deeply inspired by Leslie and her vulnerability, and, as I said, willingness to actually show her vulnerable side and share her story. So I wanted to actually describe and share what has been going on for me. As you know, that I recently relocated from Mexico. I have been in Bulgaria now for 5 days, so it's been quite a challenging transit. I've been in 4 countries in 1 week. I had a 23-hour-and-a-half overlay in Vancouver, Canada, which was beautiful but very tiring. And then I had 3 very busy and full-on days in the UK, where I try to see everyone and connect with my friends and my walking down the memory lane, like connect with my former home and place of living and places I used to go and people I used to see. And then it was quite a difficult journey coming here, with again with all the stuff that's going on at the airport, and finding a transportation to get from Sofia here to Bansko and stuff like that. And I've been very lucky. I've been very supported. I found a lot of help on the way. But now I'm in this new environment, and I don't speak the language, of course. I don't know anyone here. I actually can only stay for 3 months because I no longer hold European passport, and because of the current social political situation, I am not allowed to stay in any European country for longer than 90 days in a 180-day period. So I don't know what's next, what comes after that, but that's not really what I wanted to share, because that is not the experience I wanted to dive deeper into. But this is kind of an opening for that, because being here is making me feel vulnerable, because I'm suddenly in this new environment where I'm for the first time fully alone. I don't know anyone apart from a one friend that I connected through internet, so I actually just only met her physically for the first time when I arrived. And I'm completely on my own. This is first time in my life where I actually have my own place, which I'm very grateful for. But again, this is a new experience and it takes some adjustment to. And actually, interestingly enough, going through all this newness and this entering this new chapter and new period of my life, I started kind of freaking out, and I've reached out to my ex-boyfriend, my twin flame, whom I briefly mentioned in numerous videos, and I kind of, even now looking at it, I can call myself foolish, because what did I try to achieve? Why did I do that, right? But sometimes we go through a situation where we are so uprooted and everything, all the safety net, all the comfort zone has been removed, and we like kind of grab into this last idea of like, okay, what is still left of the safety and security of the past, right? And I just kind of wanted to make sure that, yeah, this is definitely over. And that's of course the answer I got. And it made me feel very vulnerable. And of course people might say, well, what did you expect? Like, you couldn't expect any other outcome, so you pretty much ask for it, right? But what I'm trying to explain here is that sometimes, we don't act fully rationally. And especially I feel with all the energy, the astrological energy and all the energies that has been present and going on in the past weeks, all this internal energy where there's been so much inner dialogue going on, with the Mercury going retrograde. Of course, now it's going direct, but now Pluto is going retrograde. So it's kind of making us revisit these things that are still making us disempowered, or like my very good friend said, that we start to resuscitate this thing that is dead, like just making sure, extra sure, that this thing is definitely dead, because like Pluto and Scorpio is all about death and rebirth and metamorphosis process and rising as a phoenix, right? And that's pretty much it. It was such a silly idea thinking about it now, but it's literally just came to me, and like, oh, let's try one more time, let's try just to reach one more time and just make sure that this thing is definitely dead. And of course it is dead, but I feel that with this new moon in Taurus, and I myself am Taurian, it was my solar return only a few weeks ago, and actually this new moon is happening in my exact conjunction with my natal Mars, which is in opposition with my Saturn. So in my entire life, I've been experiencing this push and pull energy, where my Mars kind of would like to move forward, but it's in Taurus, where it's debilitated. It's like, okay, well, let me make sure, 100% sure and above and beyond, and all that I know what I'm doing. And then this Saturn is like, well, are you sure you have all the knowledge and all the information and you're ready for this and stuff like that? So it's like all this push and pull energy, and is all this insecurity, and it doesn't come as easy. Like, despite what people might perceive watching my video, they might think like, oh yeah, she just packs her bag and she goes to the other side of the world, it's easy for her. But actually it isn't. It takes a long time. Like, sometimes I act on impulse and just inspiration, but sometimes I'm stuck just as everybody else in this, asking myself million questions and just making double triple sure, and just being in analysis paralysis, like, is this really what I'm supposed to do? And sometimes I do stupid things, like reach out to my ex-boyfriend to make sure that, oh, is this definitely dead, this relationship that ended like 9 months ago, right? And yeah, of course it is, but what did I expect? And it's just all these periods of our life when we make ourselves vulnerable, and actually maybe these things still needed to be looked at for more emotion to come to the surface, to refill them all over again, to actually be able to fully let it go, to fully release it, and start this new chapter with this new moon in Taurus, which is inviting us to start this new cycle of how we approaching ourselves, and how we're taking care of ourselves and nurturing our needs, and also how we're gonna show up for ourselves from now onwards. Just as myself, Michaela, and Adrian were discussing yesterday in our collaboration, that now is the time of action. The time of action is coming, and okay, it's not here right today, but it's coming, where all these planets are going to move into young signs, into air and fire, and we will feel this inclination and deeper desire, this instinctual desire to actually move forward, to actually take an action, to do something, to manifest something, and to change things. So whereas I feel that until this point, since the beginning of this year, it was a lot of internal energy, a lot of water, a lot of tying loose ends, all these Pisces energies we had, and all this closing of a cycle and preparation for opening new cycles. And this is how it's showing up for me. Like, yes, I left one country, came into the other country, now found out that actually I can only stay here for 3 months. So it's not like, oh, wow, I've arrived and this is it, my next chapter of my life. This is just another in between, and I don't know where I'm going after that. I don't know what's happening. And then once more reaching out for this person that is for a long time has not been really present in my life, but just to make sure that that cycle is definitely finished, so I can just completely let it go, and just to again feel this emotion and go through this loss, this aspect of myself, which just like Leslie's talking in her video about her experience, which is different from mine, but the feelings are similar, because at the end of the day, we in the core essence of being human, we feel the same way. We experience loss in a very similar way, and heartbreak in a similar way. It shows up in the same way, even though the details are different and we might do different things, right? But the inner feeling is not that dissimilar. And she's sharing her experience and what it's been for her, the loss she experienced in her life recently. And it again reminded me of the loss I've experienced, and all this, that it's good to have this deeper understanding from a higher perspective, and understand that everyone we meet is a teacher and it's all for our highest good. And of course that it's the opportunity to treat ourselves better and to set up healthier boundaries and all that. But that doesn't remove the feeling that we are going through, that painful lesson that we have to integrate. And me going through this experience of this heartbreak of what was the most impactful relationship in my life, this is my twin flame. I thought that this is like for a long ride, right? I didn't expect this to last for such a short time. And like, of course, people in my environment, they might say like, well, we knew it and stuff, but okay, well, I didn't know it, right? And is this like having the rational and logical explanation and understanding of this experience, whatever it is for you, however it's showing up for you, this whatever is the experience that like, oh yeah, when there is a loss, abandonment and betrayal, you can rationalize it and like, oh yeah, it's for the best, or like, yeah, like at one nice day in the future I'll be grateful to this person for abandoning me and betraying me, or like just dumping me, right? Like I meant nothing. But in that moment when you're going through this experience, it's actually very important to go through this emotion and feel them, because just by put it in that compartment in your mind that yeah, there is a rational explanation for that, it doesn't allow us to integrate the trauma. And this is actually how trauma happens. Like like when we were children, we had to put the trauma to the back burner, because like we were like, okay, well, I don't know how to deal with that. And that's why in adulthood we get triggered, and this trauma gets to be relieved. Just like in my experience right now, it's not something that I'm responding to the situation that's happening right now, but the trauma is long embedded from long time ago. So this is triggering something that happened previously in my childhood, when in experience with my parents, when they gave me to my grandparents, because I was the oldest out of 4 children and my parents couldn't cope with all these kids, so they passed me on to my grandparents, who eagerly wanted to help out and stuff. But even though now I can look at the situation from the point of adult and understand, like, yeah, of course, well, it was too much for them to handle. So of course they were, welcomed the help of my grandparents, of their parents. But when I was a little baby, or, a toddler, even though like now I can rationalize it and I might not necessarily remember it, the experience when I was a little baby, 1.5 year old or 2 year old, like it caused a trauma. It caused a sense of abandonment, that even my parents didn't want me, and it's not like, of course, from rational point of view, I understand why that happened. But from the child point of view, we don't understand, like, why are my parents, passing me on to some other people, right? And that's why like I struggle in relationships. I never really had a long-term relationships, and every time something like this happens, I try to rationalize it. I go like, oh yeah, well, it wasn't meant to be, or it wasn't the right one, or it's for the best, or he has too much luggage, or whatever, always find this explanation. And that's why listening to Leslie's story, and actually the cards she pulled for today, which were about, like we shouldn't take ourselves so seriously and actually give ourselves a break, because especially as women, and I'm sure it's the same for men, but from my experience, women more than men, we are so hard on ourselves. We expect so much from ourselves, and the bar is so high for us to constantly do better, and like just just to show up stronger than we were before. And like even from this experience, like now all the coaches and relationship advice, like, yeah, you have to be an independent woman and don't need men for nothing and stuff like that, which is like, that's a conversation for completely another time, about this complete imbalance between the divine masculine and feminine, where we women feel like we have to do too much and men feel like they are not needed, and it creates this complete imbalance. And that is just my opinion. I'm not saying that this is how it feels for other people, and people don't have to agree with what I'm saying here. But what I'm trying to get to is this: as women, like, many times we don't even give ourselves the time and the break to actually go through the grief, go through the loss, and actually feel it, and actually for that moment in time to say that, well, it's okay to feel like that. You have a right to feel like that, without all the rationalizing that, oh, there is a higher purpose and there is a soul contract and is to teach us lesson and is to help us set stronger boundaries, and all this rational of the experience is actually, how about I'll just give myself a break, and actually, yes, this is painful, and actually, yes, it's heartbreaking, and it takes time. It takes time to heal these wounds and to feel these feelings and to integrate this abandonment, loss, betrayal. And then, yes, one time in the future I can look back and say, like, oh yeah, it was for my highest good, and it helped me and it pushed me and it activated me and set me up on my path to actually start showing up as an astrologer and following my journey. I have a lot to be grateful for to this man. Like, he was the greatest teacher and the biggest transformer in my life. Like, he definitely, like, I was the catalyst in his life and in his experience, and in a sense set him free from his old life, but hoping to be part of his new life. But I was just the transitionary person in his life too, because now he's setting up on his new journey, starting a new chapter of his life, and he doesn't want me there, which is fine, because this is just how it is. And it was just not meant to play out the way that I hoped to play out, or my expectations, or whatever, but it doesn't make it any less painful. And that's where we separate the rational from the emotional. We cannot always rationalize everything, and sometimes we just need to feel what we feel and just go through it. Actually, I have not really gave myself a time to grieve. I never really gave myself the time to feel this emotion and actually accept that it is really over, and it's never gonna have experience with this person again. It's just, it really is over. It really is gone. And this last message that I had the foolish idea to reach out to him, and his response was the last nail in a coffin, just as my good friend of mine pointed out. This was literally the nail in a coffin, and in a sense, it gave me the permission to fully grieve, to actually, after all these months that already passed, to now have the realization that, like, it really is over, and now you really have to go through this process of grieving and letting it go, and just move on with your life where you at, and it's okay. And this is something that I felt inspired to share, because because of what Leslie shared in her experience, which was very hard. I'm sure it was very hard for her to talk about it, and it's very painful, and it makes her very vulnerable. And I feel that sometimes people need to hear these stories, because sometimes people put healers and astrologers and coaches on pedestal, because they think that, like, we are immune to suffering or something, that we don't go through these things. Or, oh well, because you are an astrologer, you can ask the stars and you can see, like, what's going on in the sky, and, like, what do you think we can prevent that from happening? Like, like, we can just kind of like, try to channel the energy in a way that is the most like, show the least resistance, like having the understanding. And that's why actually I find evolutionary astrology so powerful and such an amazing healing tool, and tool towards self-empowerment, because it doesn't stop these experiences from happening. It just helps you to understand why they are happening, and what is the purpose for them to be happening, and what the soul is trying to learn through these experiences. Because this is something that, from my point of view and my understanding and my belief system, this is something that we had prepared for ourselves prior to our incarnation. Before we were born, we created this this path full of breadcrumbs, which we are going to follow. And sometimes the experiences are that painful to kind of ensure that we understand, that the soul understands that this is very important, you have to pay attention here. And if we, as I have been, going through the same experience over and over and over again, for me in particular, it's, with regards to my relationships, as I'm sure it's, with a lot of other women, I'm sure a lot of women can resonate with this. It's like, again, as my good friend says, there is only one constant in this, and that's you. So, if you are the one experience this experience over and over again, that what is there that universe is trying to show you, right? And sometimes it has to get that painful that we rather die than go through that experience again. So sometimes it really has to be that painful for us to never do it again, to remember that actually I don't want to go through this pain again. And pain is inevitable, suffering is optional, just as Buddha said, right? But sometimes the pain kind of can be avoided, especially if I gone through this before and I know what to expect if I do it again, right? Like, if you touch a hot stove and you get burned, you know that if you're gonna do it again, you know what to expect, right? And in my experience, as I've shared already, I'm single, so majority of my relationship didn't end up too positively. But yeah, there always be a learning curve, and definitely with this last one, the lesson was the strongest. Let's just say. So I just felt that this is perhaps something that I had to share and release, just as we are starting this new cycle with this new moon in Taurus, and me being Taurus. I'm a Taurus sun, and as I mentioned, this new moon is happening in my exact conjunction with my Mars. And Mars actually is the archetype of action, of new beginning, of willpower, of strength. Also, it guards over your immunity, and my immunity is definitely being put under test, going from this super hot, humid weather in Mexico to this very cold weather, actually, surprisingly so for this time of the year. And just to bring this to the close, after this 20 minutes of confession and bare in my heart and soul, perhaps this is my healing. Perhaps I needed to get this out of my system, to give myself a permission to really let it go, because sometimes I feel as a hypocrite to be telling people in my videos that the stars are saying, and the energy that we've been channeling, me and other astrologers, is all about letting go and starting these new cycles and creating space for these new things to come into our life. And I myself struggle. It's not so easy. It's not easy for me. It's not easy for you. It's not easy for many people to just let it go, to just, give up. Like, especially if we have emotional investment into something like a relationship, like a romantic relationship or a friendship, close friendship, it's not so easy to just let it go, because we put so much, time and effort and emotion and vulnerability into this connection. And then when somebody tells you, like, well, it's over, you should just let it go, and it's for your highest good, it's like an abuse. To say that to someone is an abuse. It's not actually, this is not how it happens. It's the same as Till Swan says with regards to forgiveness. Forgiveness doesn't just happen when you say, like, oh yeah, I forgive you. It doesn't happen like that. It happens organically over the time, when one day you wake up and you realize that I have forgiven. Over the time, through the process of my own healing and integration, it just happened organically and naturally. But it doesn't just happen because I've decided, like, yeah, I just forgive you. And the loss of relationship doesn't just happen like that either. The loss of anything doesn't just happen like, yeah, I'm moving on today, like, yeah, let it go. It's just, like, the intention can be there, and like, hopefully is there, right? Because that is the beginning of the process, to set the intention and to have the willingness for that to take place. But it doesn't just happen like on a spur of a moment, from 1 second to another, just because we decide that. Like, there has to be an organic process for that to happen. And I feel that this new moon in Taurus, because of being Taurus sun. So if we put sun in my first house, it definitely activates new beginnings. And as I said, it's conjunct in my Mars. So that's all about Mars is always the Aries. Mars is the ruler of Aries, and is always the archetype of a new beginning, of going into some new direction. And even talking about this, Mars actually rules my third house. Aries is in my third house. I'm Aquarius rising. So maybe I needed to talk about this. Maybe, to make myself vulnerable is actually important for people to understand that we really are all in this together. There is no one that is spared of having a painful human experience. Like, yes, some people can integrate it easier and rationalize it easier, perhaps, and perhaps, due to going through this process so many times, they know what tools they need to use and what they need to do for themselves to make the process less painful, perhaps. But I don't believe there is a single person on this planet who is spared of suffering and pain, because it's part of the human experience. And if we wouldn't have gone through these difficult experiences, then how would we recognize when we are happy, right? Because we are living on this planet Earth, which is the planet of polarity and duality. So in order for us to know what is love and what is happiness, we need to experience the opposite, the loss, abandonment, betrayal, and also what it feels like to be sad and to be down. And actually today being a new moon, usually I am not very active on a new moon because I am ruled by moon. I have a moon in Cancer and I was born at night. So moon is very powerful in my chart. It's actually, apart from Pluto, is the only planet that I have in rulership. And usually I take this time for myself where I just don't really engaged with the outer world. But I guess today is a different day. Today is a different experience, and there is no coincidence that I came across this podcast this morning. And I want to say thank you to Leslie for the inspiration and perhaps in indirect subconscious way giving me a permission to speak out about my experience and to share what I've been going through, even though, I'm sure that not many people are probably interested in hearing that, but those who are, and those who are experiencing loss and struggle in their current circumstances, and I'm sure there are many, I just wanted to say that you are really not alone, that everybody is experiencing these energies in one way or another, however they showing up in each other's lives. But these energies are very intense, and is this the Pluto squaring the nodes for the entire year, we are bound to face everything that is dead and outdated and needs to go from our life. But it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, and it's not gonna give us the emotions of pain and hardship, right? But it's the process, and we all in this together. And I think it's very important just to give ourselves the time and the permission to take it easy and to be patient with ourselves, just as I said in the video yesterday, to have a patience and compassion, just as you would have with everyone else. Just give it to yourself as well, because Taurus is about self-love, isn't it? And now Venus being the sign of Cancer, Cancer is all about nurturing and emotional self-reliance. And how we gonna become emotionally self-reliant if we are suppressing our emotions, right? We need to be able to reconnect with our emotions and be able to trust ourselves that I'm here for myself, right? So anyway, guys, I'm gonna leave this at that, because half an hour of confession. I'm sure that people have other things to do today. If you are watching this far, I thank you. Thank you for listening and for creating this safe space for me to be able to express myself. And I wish you all a beautiful new cycle and beautiful new moon. Put your intentions out there, because Taurus definitely helps them grow, being an earth sign, being so steady and fertile. And let's just see what these upcoming months are going to bring for us. And I'll wish you a beautiful day, and I'll speak to you soon. Much love. Bye.